a year later in 2012, when he came back to buy the other one, and I realized that it's 2012 and now suddenly I own this bus, it wasn't long before I realized, maybe I can start renting it out. And I could do that because I had a network of people that I had cultivated over the previous 4 years.
That was Alex Maxa, the founder of Gillibus. I'm Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco. If you missed part 1 with Alex, please go back and listen. In this episode, Alex picks up where he left off, with his first visit to San Francisco. We talk about his college days in upstate New York, graduating and moving around a bit, and a fateful trip with his dad to Tokyo in 2008. Alex moved to San Francisco shortly after that. He shares the story of starting Gillibus, his bus rental service based here in the city. I first heard about Gillibus through April M., who connected us with the folks at Pop's Bar back in 2020. Then, when Aaron and I were putting our wedding together last summer, Jillian from Casements mentioned Alex and Gillibus as a great way to get our guests from the bar down Mission Street to Royal Cuckoo. We ended up on the second shuttle, and it was such a fun ride, I felt we had to have Alex on the show. Here he is, Alex Maxa of Gillibus.
So, San Diego was probably just for fun, but by the time we were getting to LA, we were looking at, a bunch of schools out there. I think she was like really into Pomona, and she wanted to go to Pomona. She wanted to go to, I loved UC Santa Cruz. I mean, I loved the banana slug concept, the boardwalk, boardwalk with the amusement park.
Did y'all go there?
We went back to visit a second time when she was really trying to decide between Barnard in New York, which she was not a good fit for and got the hell out as soon as she could, but she loved New York City, between Barnard and UCSC.
Okay.
And the famous story, well, I'm the only one who tells this story. I think it's funny. It's now it's kind of a cliche in my own. We're sitting there. It's the second time she's done the tour, and she just can't make up her mind. And she says, and she wants to play tennis too. And so she's thinking about UC Santa Cruz. She's thinking about going to New York and sort of not doing that. And she goes, "Hey, could you tell me where again are the freshman dorms?" And the person on the tour is like, "Well, actually here we call them fresh people." And I think that moment was where she was like, I don't necessarily want to, if I'm going to create a new personal brand, I think I wanted to go to New York City.
Right.
That didn't turn anybody off. It just is the joke I make about like really how a pivotal moment went down, which was the family not having anything to do with California at that point, until another 14 years.
Yeah.
So that was that. She put the kibosh on any fun future for me in California for the time being when she said, I'm going to go to New York City and be that person. So of course later on I was that was the magnet. I was always going to New York to hang out with her. And
y'all came to San Francisco on one of those two trips?
We came to SF and we stayed at our friend's house. And
where was that? Where in the city?
That was up in Presidio Heights.
Okay.
Jack Sullivan and Catherine Sullivan were the couple. They knew Catherine knew my mom and dad from DC area. She went to school out here. They must have met somehow in the 70s or 80s. And so we got out there, and their house is absolutely massive.
Yeah, I bet.
There's a sauna in it. It had a giant roof deck overlooking the
bridge,
Presidio and the bridge. I didn't know that wasn't necessarily, it fit in with DC. I mean, like we were in upper Northwest, by the cathedral, by the Naval Observatory, which is the vice president's house. People have yards,
monuments,
and it's Embassy Row,
right?
So there's a lot, and the presidential motorcades are driving by my house, on Massachusetts Avenue,
on the reg.
there's a homeless man with an MP5 who's actually a Secret Service guy on the corner that evening because Bill and Hillary are going to the movies.
Right. Right. So how old were you? You said this was like 92, 3?
It was 93, 94. So I'm 10,
11.
10 and 11. And I was psyched. I mean, I thought SF was the real deal. LA was cool, but this reminded me a lot of DC. I could actually live here. New York scared the hell out of me. New York City scared the hell out of me. Where can you just relax here?
Right.
So
besides some of those similarities between DC and SF as a 10, 11-year-old, like what other kinds of impressions did you have? Or was that it? Were you like, this is a version of what it
was like a music video. I mean, California was MTV come to life. If I'd seen like badass, John Carpenter movies and like exploitation movies about New York City as a kid, which I wasn't allowed to. And maybe I would have fallen in love with like Escape from New York era, New York City, and been like, this is really cool. This is like a movie, but I just thought it was terrifying. So to me, LA and San Francisco were like, oh my God, I'm touching it. It's real. And I remember we drove to Stinson because these people had one of these family friends had one of those houses on Stinson Beach. Like, awesome. Didn't know that wasn't normal.
Right.
And we were driving out there and I was like, oh my God, like, and we must have been somewhere else in Marin with the rolling hills. But I was like, this is like the Blind Melon No Rain video where maybe the Smashing Pumpkins Today video where they're with the ice cream truck and like the rolling hill. Like, I was like, that's, and that weird, Four Non Blondes was on the radio. And in LA, it was the oldies station. It was Motown. It was, not classic rock, but like more like 60s Motown stuff. And
was there some magic to it, Alex?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, it was pure uncut dad time without any of the DC stuff going on.
You can say, you can cuss on the show.
My dad's a really chill, fun guy, but DC is a button-down place, and a lot of time, you had to put on some loafers or a blazer. California, none of that. I could hang out with my dad and not like have to worry about adult. Like, I was not playing up. I wasn't playing punching above. I was just my dad and my sister. It was family time, but also no mom. Just San Francisco fun mom, the cool mom, Catherine Sullivan and Jack, and Jack was a stockbroker. So he was at work until like 2 p.m. and then would come home. And so I had like, we had like our caretaker parents, Jack and Catherine Sullivan, and my dad and my sister, we were like the gang, so we had a lot of fun. And I got to be with without them too. I would go just be with Catherine while my dad and my sister went and looked at Berkeley or something, I went there too, though. I went out to Amoeba. We saw the naked guy in Berkeley. Naked guy.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yep.
It was just endless stuff. I remember going to see The Fugitive in the Mission at one of the theaters that's now a parking garage, I think,
Not the one where Casements is.
No, I think it's the one
that was a theater.
I think it's that one where it's just the whole backside. It's like it's on Mission around like in the 20s or teens. It's like Alamo Draft House took over one. It's the one on the other side of the street further down that's
Casements.
Like you drive through and the whole back.
Yes, that's Casements.
So what's
the El Capitan was the name of the theater.
What's going on in that open area back parking lot?
It's a parking lot.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Jillian built her beer garden into that parking lot. Like, she has a little space carved out, and that's where we got married.
Gotcha. So
sounds like you saw a movie where Casements is now.
Maybe I did.
Let's just tie it all together for this podcast.
That's cool. Yeah. That's cool with me. But I mean, that's the kind of thing where like when I moved to San Francisco, I had like a flashback. I was like, I don't remember. Like, to me, I didn't know we were in the Mission or whatever. I was like, let's go back to like, this is like kind of like LA. I've seen this. Let's go back up to, the water and the seals, or the sea lions. So I got a good taste of things. And it was, I'm 11. And at that time, 10 and 11, but I'm still really fired up when I see trolleys at that age. I didn't really get over, so to see that happening where in DC we only had trolley tracks from back in the day. Like California, it was, the dream was that it was more in the past than the future. Okay. I wasn't like, damn, Silicon Valley and look at all these gadgets and man, this is how people are going to do things in the future. I was like, this is just an alternate reality that has given me a bunch of perspective.
Awesome.
And it's too good to be true. It's too good to be true. Oh, totally. That's right. There's going to be an earthquake that's going to completely, don't get too attached.
Can we sort of slightly fast forward to that moment? You said it was, what did you actually go to college and graduate and then decide, or like, did the first impression have anything to? Okay, you decided to move to San Francisco.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, this is what I got to do. I tried being a ski bum in Park City and working at, the ritzy resort there to, check my hotel school practical experience box. Got pretty shitty to mediocre grades. Just couldn't see the point of investing in anything in particular. I was anxious. I wasn't in that good a time. I wasn't that distracted. I just couldn't understand where, the job prospects were so demoralizing. My favorite class was hotel and restaurant design, and the teacher's like, oh yeah, maybe you can get a job in Orlando or Detroit, and your first job at this firm will be like digging through the garbage of why would I even be digging through the garbage? It was like looking up, so when you're trying to design a restaurant, and I can't remember why. I'm sorry. I've told this story and I just hit a wall where I can't remember why you'd be doing this sort of oppo research or dumpster diving to like determine stuff. I think it was probably to figure out like what the previous business was, what their numbers. I don't know. So I just, and no shade, like no hate to Detroit or Orlando, but I didn't know anybody in Detroit or Orlando, and that did not sound like a good time. I was somebody who had a core group of friends from growing up who I loved to see. I mean, in college I had a car, drove all over the Eastern Seaboard visiting my friends because I would rather do that a lot of time than be where I was. So this idea that I'm just going to move to Orlando or Detroit, grab my suitcase and put on a suit and and I'd been trying to get jobs every summer, in New York City, working for, I'll just go straight and just get a corporate job at some hotel company and, whatever. It's not that easy. It wasn't ever a good fit. I tried working at a hotel, and it was a family friend's place over the river here in Virginia at a Relais Chateau place. And by the first week, the F&B manager was like, what are you doing here? You don't want to do this.
It was that apparent.
You go to Cornell hotel school and you want to go into operations at a hotel? Like, I work here because my husband is the chef and we get to be at work together. Otherwise, we'd have no time together. We work all the time. And this lady was cool and I trusted her and I quit. And that, that was somewhat immature, but whatever. It seemed like, how can I come back from that?
Yeah,
I need to be motivated and happy.
I'm going to argue with you. I think that's very mature. You corrected course.
Yeah, I corrected course without actually, sitting down and looking anybody in the eye and explaining that. I'm sure to my parents, it just looked like, a guy who can't figure it out and is floundering. Why does he want to do this if he doesn't want to do this? Why is he in the hotel? It was undergraduate.
To make a bus pun out of it, you put the bus in reverse.
Yeah. I slammed on the brakes.
And hit reverse.
Yeah.
So let's hear about the decision. What was
the decision to move out to San Francisco? It was a real.
Also, it was 2008. Was it like already when shit was completely, the bottom was falling out in 2008, or was it before that?
Yeah, like in the fall of 2000. When did like hold on?
Goldman Sachs. It was Goldman Sachs was
When did
like
when did Lehman
September.
Brothers
Lehman, and that's
was that
September, I think.
was that September 2008?
Yeah.
Right, of course, it wasn't 2007. So
No.
it was, I always have this memory of my friend telling me that he's like walking out of the office because the firm got, like, his firm was tied to Lehman and it's over. And I thought I was in my basement apartment in Ithaca, but I wasn't. I was out in California, I guess, by then. Yeah, that wasn't, the gravity of that situation wasn't hitting me yet. I mean, Fannie Mae is a giant building that in my neighborhood growing up that I went by a million times. But I never quite understood what was going on until the shit hit the fan. So I wasn't strategizing. What happened was, my dad was he had a television series that was he was like Rick Steves or Bourdain, right? He's a host. He goes somewhere, he brings the crew, he shoots the show. It's travel, it's a little bit of food. But I'd been on a few of his gigs, let's call them. When he's a journalist, he's flying somewhere to write about it, but when he's doing the TV show, it's like I'm part of the production team. So I went to Italy, I think in 2004. My sister went on one of these, and this is airing on PBS. So it's kind of fun because people will see it. Right. It's on. People would see his name on the TV guide on the menu on your TV in college, like when you're sitting there on the couch, like,
I feel like I might have seen his stuff.
Yeah, you might. Smart Travels, like Rudy Max. I mean, people like it. So it's 2008. It's 2008, and he's like, we're shooting in Tokyo, over your spring break. You should come. So I went to Tokyo, even though spring break's only a week. It was some brutal jet lag, but I made the trip. And at that point in my life, I'm 25 because I transferred, switch majors, and took a year off. I'm graduating late. I'm putting off the inevitable real world,
Yeah.
I'm scrambling, trying to figure out what's going to happen once I break through the atmosphere. I hope I don't burn up in it. I need to get through. I need to figure out what I'm going to do next. And I still don't have a plan, but I go to Tokyo in March of 2008 for a week, and it completely, lit the pilot light, and I suddenly said, this is absolutely incredible. There are 4 or 5 Times Squares here in Tokyo. I've learned the subway in 2 days, and in New York, I'm still screwing it up. It's a complete other world. These people have no idea that New York City exists, as far as I'm concerned, which had been the center of my universe for a good 6 to 7 years at that point, due to my sister living there. Once I was sort of old enough to get up there, another funny story is, my sister was being cool as hell in New York City in the 90s. She was working as a cocktail server at Conscience Point nightclub in the Hamptons, in like 99, 2000, which was an absolute scene. It's like peak bad boy, records era. It's this mansion in the countryside, and it's just completely debaucherous. She's living upstairs. Billy Joel's drunk driving, crashing his car every night. Famous PR woman Lizzie Grubman backs over someone's foot in her SUV and shuts the whole thing down. Well, she wanted me. She's like telling my mom and my dad, she's like, Bird. She calls me Bird. No one knows why. She always has, always will. Bird should come up and be like a server, like or a busboy. If he comes up to Conscience Point, he'll make $2,000 a night.
Whoa. Okay.
My dad was like, this sounds like a great idea. He'll meet a lot of people and learn a lot of stuff. And my mom's like, absolutely not. He's going to basketball camp and lacrosse camp. It has to do, Jesus Christ. It's like, so I could have been a star. I could have been a contender in 2000 and been like some teenage, almost famous, age, situation.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that movie with my mom and being like, oh my God, is this us? That's your mama's boy. But okay, but
that sliding door closed.
That sliding door closed. It was like, no, you're not going to go that route. You're not going to be that guy. And then by the time it's 2008, I'm like, geez, I sure wish I had some kind of calling card in New York City, because that's like where I spent all my time. My sister, she had left by then, but all my friends from school are there. That's the cool place to be. DC, where I'm from, is just that's JV, right? I'm not going to go back there. It's a second-rate place where nobody cool is. I just I didn't have any prospects. And I go to Tokyo, I'm like, oh, wait a second. I've always known I can go all over the world and work anywhere I want, but I don't really want to be alone. When I do that, I'm sort of like a pack animal in a lot of ways. But Tokyo just said to me, like, you know what, just don't think too hard about it. Just know that there's this complete other world that doesn't care about anything related to your past that you are hung up on, your resume, your grades, whatever it is. Like, go be yourself somewhere, because you can fit if you can get along in Tokyo after 2 days, like you're going to be fine. So go be where you want to be. Don't worry about the job. Go be where you want to be. But that was right behind be where you want to be was, in my mind, it's not where you are, it's who you're with. And so in order to reconcile that, I was like, well, thank God my best friend is in San Francisco. And thank God I have, a little bit of history there. And if I look through my Rolodex, I bet I know a bunch more people out there. Oh, my cousin just moved, So it became like, instead of slogging it out at the end of the year and rolling into graduation and goofing off that summer and trying to get serious in the fall, luckily I had a spark happen in March that made me say, okay, just pick a place, just put your chips down, and then you'll be happier. And I didn't move till August of that year after I graduated.
Okay.
But I sure did. And a friend from school got me a gig in Napa at a custom crush winery called Bin to Bottle. I met this friend in the wines class, actually in the beers class. We legit took wine tasting class, legit took the Anheuser-Busch sponsored
class.
Beers, down the hallway from the Nestle library. So, she's the first non-hotel, Liz Edwards, shout out to Liz. Although she's married, maybe she has taken on a different name, but she was older. She was a business school person. She said, hey, I'm going to work for this custom crush winery. The guy who owns it is a hotel school grad from back in the day, and I can probably get you a job if you want. And I'm like, Liz, you're the coolest. Like, not only do you take me to all the bars because you have an expense account and all of them from your liquor distribution background, but you just got me a job. I'll see you out there. And so I'm driving across the country to get to the Bay Area, and she's like, she calls me, and I'm in Nebraska. She's like, do you want to live in I'm looking at a couple places, okay? One's in Vallejo and one is in Napa. I said, all right, what's the difference? Well, they're both equidistant from work, but Napa is a little further away from SF. And, there's not much to really walk to there. But this place in Vallejo has got a pool and a gym, and, it's like got parking, and it looks pretty cool. And I'm like, and it's closer to SF. I'm like, well, that sounds great. Sign me up. So click, hang up the phone. And now I'm just on my way to Burning Man on a whim as I'm crossing the country, because my friend suggested I do it. So I stopped in Chicago. I bought a bunch of stuff, cooled my heels at a friend's place. And decided I'm going to this crazy thing in the desert before, my first day of work is Monday, Labor Day. Okay. And the man burns on Saturday. Yep. And I'm going to get from there to work on Monday. And I didn't realize how hard that was going to be, but I did it. Yeah. Burning Man changed my life.
I want to hear about that a little bit, but I also think your story is pretty special, because in my personal experience, and then over the 20 some years I've been here, having both a job and a place to live is rare. It's usually one or the other because of the economy here and how it works. You had both. That's fucking awesome. So you knew that after this cross-country road trip and after this experience at Burning Man, you're like, You're set.
Yeah, I was like, I knew that I was going into I mean, a custom crush winery is like a wine factory, right?
Mm-hmm.
This was going to be the most like Steinbeckian, like 2008 thing possible. You know, my assets at that point were skis and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
my Subaru Forester,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, another reason I wanted to do San Francisco is because I grew up skiing,
The
and
mountains
I
here. Yep.
was spoiled because my stepdad um grew up. I mean, no, he didn't grow up. He's like 85. He was skiing in like the mid 50s. He was
Oh
going to
shit.
Squaw Valley. He was driving
Yep.
from Palo Alto to Idaho in a VW to go ski. You know, like
Wow.
so we would fly up to Colorado, which is something that I could not afford to do once I got to be in college and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that if I wanted to have access to that via car, there were not that many places I could live. I tried living in Park City, didn't like it. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'll do Tahoe from San Francisco. I'll have the best of both worlds.
Yep.
Um, and so yeah, I when it came to driving out there, I showed up, you know, in my car covered in dust, and um had come down from the mountain, you know,
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
like no one's gonna believe this. I went with a friend of a friend who's now a dear friend who lives in San Francisco, but I was sort of on my own out there for the first time. And I came back and I just couldn't like begin to explain it. And first thing I did was I drove to San Francisco, had dinner in North Beach with my best old buddy, um, and ate like a ton of Italian food at Sudini's.
Oh
That was his
yeah.
recommendation. And then I
That's a good
drove.
friend. That's a good
Yeah,
friend.
yeah. He knew what's up, and Jack did, and I got back in the car and I drove 30 miles to Vallejo, which was no big deal at that point in my cross
Mm-hmm.
country journey.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I get to Vallejo, and my roommate's not there yet. She doesn't get in for another few days. Liz, who got the apartment and the job for me. So I show up. It's nighttime on Sunday night of Labor Day weekend, and you know I'm pulling up in Vallejo, and there's 6 lanes and palm trees and you know gas stations and stuff, and it looks like I don't know Southern California or something like that. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
cool, here I am. I pull into my gated community apartment complex, and I walk up the stairs, second floor, open the door, plop down my bags, and I hear bam, 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 like probably about 15 semi-automatic gunshots. And I just, I mean, I'm such a like, you know, hungover haze that I, you know, and I'm shell shocked from Burning Man that I just walk out to the deck, the little porch. You know, I don't hit the ground. I'm like, oh, someone's throwing more fireworks. This is great. You know, and I see the perps just zooming down the street with the cops after them, and I'm like, huh, like
What the
I
hell is
don't know.
this?
That's crazy. Guess I'm going to bed so I can go to work tomorrow at 8 in the morning. And I go to work the next morning, and I'm at, you know, it's the meeting, and I'm, you know, we're in the wine factory. You know, it's like I think more people understand it. It's like we look like we're brewing beer, but we're brewing wine.
Right.
And it was a good mix of guys, you know, all ages. But there are a lot of Latino guys, and they're like, "You live in Vallejo, man? I don't even live in Vallejo. She lives in Vallejo." I'm like, "Well, what's the big deal?" And you know, I think someone sent me the New Yorker piece about that. You know, it's the first and only bankrupt city in America, and the police department doesn't have any money. And you know, welcome to the party, pal. And I was like, oh, all right. Well, luckily, you know, I grew up in DC during the murder capital era, and even though I was in the nice part of town, like, I'm not scared. I'm just doing this. I don't have to worry. You know, I've got a gate and a pool and a gym in my place. I'm cordoned off from like the insanity, I guess. It wasn't insane. It wasn't. There's a lot of history. I really love Vallejo. I worked out there for the harvest and was going into the city every weekend. I mean, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. They gave me weekends off instead of hazing the new college boy and giving him the worst shifts. Some angel gave me the weekend to be normal, and so I would go into the city and whatever, commute from Vallejo to basically the Napa airport right there, through American Canyon. You know, it's 2008. American Canyon is hit hard by the recession. You know, people were driving around in Porsches trying to sell them for $500, and I could barely not afford it. I almost made some really dumb decisions. I'm having the best time ever. I'm having the best time ever. Music that I've listened to a million times, I'm listening to again, like for the first time, and it's better than ever. You know, I am meeting people from the East Coast, and they're in San Francisco, and I like them better than I would have if they were on the East Coast. You know, it's like everything is coming up, Alex.
So that was 08. Gillibus is 12, you said?
Yeah, 12.
Let's hear that story, and we'll wrap after that.
So I moved to the city after 3 months in Vallejo, and I was catering. I was, you know, working at whatever, you know, wine related gig could get me paid, wine PR once. And eventually the coupon era pops up, the Groupon era pops up, and I'm doing, you know, for now defunct companies, hospitality sales, online marketing, stuff like that. And, you know, my first real job, like out of school, finally had a real job, 2009, 10 and 11. And I was good at it. But by the time that industry tanked, didn't matter how good you were at selling it, you know, or what you knew or who you knew, you couldn't get like Premier Business discount anymore after a while. And I luckily, you know, I fell into a group of friends that were very creative. They had a warehouse that still exists called Go for a Loop. They're not in charge of it anymore, like in the Mission / Potrero. And we had an apartment, 4 guys, and my buddy says one day, hey, you know, I'm moving back to New York, and I'm buying a bus. And I was like, oh no, that sucks. You're, you know, because, you know, that's an era where you're recruiting friends in San Francisco, 8, 9, 10, you can get housing, you can get a job. It's not obnoxious to say, get the hell out of New York. Like, I know it sucks. Come here. You're going to love it. Right. And so, you know, this guy's going back the other direction. No, you know, he got out there first. He made a plan with his girlfriend to get back together. I mean, it's actually a wonderful love story. Oh. And so I didn't hear, and I'm buying a vintage bus. All I heard was, I'm out of here, breaking up the band. Well, we went and we bought the bus in February 2011, and I suddenly see that this isn't just, you know, this is a classic body looking, you know, this is a classic looking bus. We didn't have these on the East Coast. Right. It's rounded. It looks like a giant VW. This is pretty cool. And suddenly, you know, I knew these guys with a warehouse were pretty handy dandy, but I didn't really realize that, you know, how handy they were till I saw them attack this bus, you know, with their bare hands. I mean, these are guys who did not grow up necessarily doing trades and anything like that, but they learned skills instead of being jocks like me. Right. So I said, damn, you guys are killing it. Like, can I like throw in $500 for the stereo? Because I don't know how to do anything. I can't upholster anything. I don't understand how electricity works. I don't, you know, I'm not going to like try to check the oil. I don't know anything. I don't even know how to drive this thing. It was like a 10-speed. But we souped it up, and we promptly, before Jack moved back to New York, we went on an epic road trip. They went to Austin, beyond Austin. They went to New Orleans and back. And then we did Coachella in April. I mean, he stretched out his goodbye party for 2 or 3 months with this bus. And he goes, I got to go to New York. I can't drive this thing across the country again alone at 55 miles per hour. I just did it with you. So I'm going to leave it here with you. I'll come back and get it. Okay. And so he says, I'll come back and get it. And a year later, it's 2012, like March, and he's on his way to come back and get the bus that I've been overseeing, you know, paying parking tickets, moving it, having a little fun, learning how to drive it. He comes back to get it 2 weeks before he comes to get it. It gets hit on the street. Oh, shit. Hit and run. Bumper is all messed up. And he just says, you know what? I'm going to buy another one for $2,000 in Sacramento, another Gillig. And he bought that one. We souped it up. We drove it to New York, across the country, and he had it from 2012 to 2017. But suddenly, and now it's back in San Francisco, that bus. But the original one, I got to keep. And a year later in 2012, when he came back to buy the other one, and I realized that it's 2012 and now suddenly I own this bus, it wasn't long before I realized, maybe I can start renting it out. And I could do that because I had a network of people that I had cultivated over the previous 4 years. A lot of it related to the East Coast transplants, all the people, the post-college world. They knew me. And my first client was a Bernal guy, a local guy who we went to college together. We just didn't know each other. We just had a mutual friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember taking him out for a wine tour and it was like, holy shit, this was great. I can get paid for this. And I met a guy who I never would have met otherwise, really.
Right.
I mean,
right.
I met 20 people instantly that day who,
wow.
The network effect. I mean, it's not even about buzzwords. It's just like, it was really tangible, it was really
and
tangible.
Exponential too.
Exponential is the word.
Yeah.
And it changed suddenly. Again, it was another epiphany. It was another off to the races thing. And it pulled me out of a rut. It pulled me out of another situation where I'd hit a dead end.
Is it wrong, Alex? Is it wrong to say that first bus was bequeathed to you?
I say that all the time. It was bequeathed to me.
And so it all just kind of fell into place and you're like, I'm going to do something with this.
That it was bequeathed to me by Jack, the Godfather, Jack Bertuzzi. So he's known as the Godfather
of Gillibus.
It almost seems like a fake story. It almost
right.
seems like seems like a psyop. It almost seems like there's this guy who's lying about how he started a bus company that, carries around, the Bay Area's elite tech people and, shows everybody a good time. And he's just a regular guy. But no, I really think that what happened was I just had a lot of faith in my friends and that came back to me.
Yeah.
So
that's the
origin story.
If I may, you also carry around one of the best weddings to ever happen in San Francisco. So you were part of that.
I know. And how good that made, the fact that that we can share that and that happened despite everything in 2021.
Yes.
And I get so much joy out of that. And you just have no idea. I don't have to be there every time to get that. Driving the buses is almost a hobby. The bus drivers, the Gillibus drivers, I mean, we got to give a shout out to them because they are absolutely fantastic and the point men, and they know exactly what it takes to do that job. Mm-hmm. And they exceed people's expectations. Everyone thinks that they're just going to get a drone essentially driving. They don't even think about the bus drivers so much, but the clients are special, the vehicle is special, the driver is special, and then the city. Where else are you going to be able to do this with no heating and air conditioning?
Right.
With access to the stuff that we have access to. Right. So I consider myself very, very lucky.
Okay. What I would like to end with, I think this is for you and Gillibus, this is sort of two parts. Our theme this year is We're Still Here. And, we started that in the pandemic last year. All the changes, all the folks forced out, all the folks who decided to leave, and just the fucking changes that have happened here. But then also, Gillibus, this is your 10-year anniversary, so you're still here. It's can you speak to that and what it means to you and your little enterprise that you've?
Oh wow, I am more determined than ever. I feel so supported by everybody that whether it's clients, friends, family, that if I had started this business 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I wouldn't have stood a chance. And because I started a while ago and because I have a decade under my belt, I mean, that's what's keeping me afloat. And I believe that this is has been my calling, and I owe it to myself and everybody to see it through, to get it back on track. And where I go from there, I don't know, but I was ready the past 2 years, right before the pandemic hit. I was ready to really blow up in a few good ways. That my final act with Gillibus, or the part where I really kick my feet up and say, this is what I've always wanted to be, that got kneecapped, and I'm still working towards that.
Okay.
So it's a comeback, and it is all I can do to help bring the city back and keep the spirit of my, glory days in it, which may be gone. They may be gone for me, but I'm 38. It's not that I'm old. It's that, party busing and stuff like that is sometimes it's for younger people. But as long as I'm doing this, I'm loving that my people are aging with me. You know what I mean? That people are growing up with the buses just as I have. You're using it for your wedding. You're not a 25-year-old. So I forgot what the question was, but it was just in conclusion, I just feel so lucky and grateful that it's happened, that we've made it this far, that there was just no way in hell I was gonna give up because of something I couldn't control.
That was Alex Maxa. On the next episode of Storied San Francisco, meet SF State Journalism Department Chair Michelle Kilfeather. Episode 35 drops next Tuesday wherever you listen to podcasts. And now, a quick word from the folks at KQED's Right Nowish.
Ever heard of Right Nowish? It's a podcast, and I'm the host, Pendarvis Harshaw. We made Right Nowish because the Bay Area has been undergoing some big changes. So I wanted to talk to the artists and creatives on the front line of history. We chop it up about gentrification, art, healing, you name it. And we have some fun along the way.
Man, the first time I put on a pair of spandex, it was like, uh-oh, freedom.
Check out the Right Nowish podcast.
Music for the podcast was produced, performed, and curated by Otis McDonald. Original photography is by Michelle Kilfeather. Aaron Lim of Bitch Talk Podcast is our contributing producer. And the show is produced and hosted by me, Jeff Hunt. Now in our 4th season, we have more than 160 episodes available on our website, storiedsf.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you can, please rate and review our show so we can reach even more folks. We love email. Drop us a line at storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Stay strong, stay healthy, keep dreaming, and we'll see you next time on Storied San Francisco.
This podcast is a proud member of the BFF.FM podcast network. Learn more at podcasts.bff.fm.
BFF.FM, best frequencies forever.